Hey guys, I'm back with a look at the Storm Collectibles Golden Axe Dead Frame 2-pack of skeletons here. I'm super excited to get these. Just to be honest and throw this out right away, I don't have any Storm Collectibles, aside from a Baki Hanma. I don't have any of the Golden Axe line or anything like this. I'm looking at this more from a standpoint of throwing these in with Mythic Legions, with maybe some of the Neca D&D, with some Savage Crucible. I saw these a while ago and I was really excited when I saw them. I've seen tons and tons of skeletons. I haven't seen any skeletons of like lizard men or snake men or reptile men like this. I think these are pretty unique. I haven't seen anything quite like it out there from other manufacturers. Maybe something exists and I just haven't seen it. But when I saw these, I knew I had to get them, and I'm beyond blown away to have them in hand. And packaging doesn't really give us a whole lot of view of them the way Storm does their packaging with that plastic in there. It's hard to see them. But the packaging itself looks really nice, and can't wait to crack these open. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look here out of the package. There's the box. Cool back art in there. Set that aside. Here's the plastic packaging in what appears to be the typical Storm style. Have a sheet of plastic to protect the figures. Looks like we have the 2 figures, 2 shields, 2 weapons, and a total of 5 sets of hands, which is pretty cool. It's kind of a first look at these shields here. Some weathering, some battle damage, some cool spikes, arm strap, and a handle. Alright, and the 2 weapons that comes with it. Kind of these double-sided, I don't know what they would be. Not axes, not knives, not swords. But neat weapons either way. Some good paint detail on those. Nice silver look to the blades. A little bit of wear, a little bit of damage. And they've kind of picked up these like metal rivets or what have you that would go through the handle to hold the blade. Those are pretty neat. Let's look at one of these dead frames here. Super cool. First look. It looks like they come with a little bit of foam in there to keep the chest in the right shape. I heard looking at reviews on these, thing I was a little bit nervous about was these shoulders. At least on like Amazon reviews, there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, these things broke right away." I wouldn't say they feel flimsy, but I wouldn't say they feel super robust either. It looks like it's this kind of like shoulder blade is glued onto the rib cage, so as you go to move this, it just wants to flex the ribs themselves. If I'm holding the shoulder blade and moving that shoulder joint around, it feels a lot more secure. If I'm rotating it, going up and down, it doesn't feel too bad. But he is a pretty skinny character overall, so these joints are just going to be smaller and, more fragile joints, I guess, than a more robust figure. It doesn't feel quite as secure as, say, like one of the Mythic Legions skeletons moving them around, but that's a lot bigger character. I think a skeleton with a little bit different purpose, different look. All right, so quick look at the articulation here. The neck is kind of fixed in that bent position right here at the base, and there's a ball joint at the head. So we get him looking down, we get him looking up. We can not really do a whole lot side to side, but you can get a little bit more if you combine that with a twist. The jaw opens. Let's see. Pretty good amount. Maybe more than you might pose him with. Both my figures, the jaws seem to be misaligned just a hair. So just a little bit of a alignment issue on there. Doesn't really bother me. I mean, they look like weathered, worn skeletons to me, so I'm not really worried about that being perfect. His dental work looking all that great, but I'm sure a heat gun would fix that if this is an issue across the board. I think the weathering looks really good too. I didn't mention that. But yeah, so we got the articulation there. Articulation in the shoulders. These basically, no, they do go full 360. They go out. We can get a T-pose, although if you look, they're kind of angled forward a little bit. But we do get a T-pose. They come down. We get a single jointed bend at the elbow, because it's a little bit better than a 90. We have some pretty good motion there at the wrist. up and down. And because of the way these joints are, you kind of have to move them around. If you want like a vertical or horizontal hinge, you just kind of have to work it around until you find it. His spine is articulated in two places, right in here and right at the base of the pelvis. So it does rotate. We can rotate it. He also can bend there. But look at this. Straight up, bend all the way down. That's crazy to me. This is how I'd want a skeleton. I understand why not all skeletons can do this, but this is super cool. This is exactly what I want. I mean, he can be slumped down against a wall in a dungeon. He can be kind of dead and laid over something. I'm really excited to take some photos and pose these guys because of that. But yes, he has a back bend too, and a pretty crazy forward bend. The tail has a single point of articulation here. Goes up a pretty good amount and tucks pretty good. The hips kind of have like a ball joint in the hip and a ball joint in the femur there. So you have a little bit of a drop to it. You have a forward kick. And that's just a little ball joint. No harm, no foul. So you can get that back, get that forward. You do actually have, kind of hard to see, but you do have some rotation on that too, so you can kind of kick the leg in and out. We have a single jointed knee that gives us a little bit better than 90, and then we have ball jointed ankles. It's a similar story to the wrist. So if you want back and forth rock, you have to turn that ball, or if you want front and back, you have to turn it to kind of align with the direction you want to pivot it in. Yeah, overall articulation's looking really good to me. Let's take a look at the hands here. On the figures, they come with these two closed hands, these fisted hands. This figure here, I've already swapped him out to the standard kind of gripping hands. Let's see here. We do also get a set of right and left pointing hands with both figures. See that? Yeah. We get a set of kind of like more open but still gripping hands. There. The paint application on these is the same as the figure too. It's really nice. Good weather and good wash to it. And then last set of hands is a little bit more, even more open hand. Maybe that kind of an open gesturing type hand there. All right, let's get these guys posed up and take a look at them. All right, here we have the two dead frames posed up, back to back, ready to do some battle. Had a little bit of a chance to pose them and play with them a little bit, setting up this shot. I think these two poses give a good representation of what you can get out of them. You can get that very upright stance, and they're going to stand a little taller than most of the 1/12 scale figures, a little taller than Mythic Legions, a little taller than the Savage Crucibles, or you can have them in a, I think, what looks a little bit more natural hunched over pose. Maybe not quite as hunched over as this example, but when you have them hunched over there, I think they'll look a lot better in scale. But either way, just taking these figures for what they are, I think they look really cool. I think they look very neat in themselves. They have a very weathered, old look to the bone. They don't look freshly dead or anything like that. I think the kind of the physiology of them, their feet and their skull and the tails really stand out. Even their hands are not quite human skeleton. You know, the rest of the body has that kind of normal skeleton look, but these guys are just different enough that they really stand out from other skeletons that I own. And they're certainly more articulate than other figures that I own, other skeletons, I should say. But on their own, judging these guys on their own, I really like them. I love them a lot. They are maybe a hair on the, I wouldn't even say fragile side, because if you're an adult collector, you're buying these kind of figures, these kind of toys, I think you're used to what you're going to be experiencing here. I wouldn't say these are anything extra scary to handle. They are a little bit more delicate to pose than some other figures, but That's just because of the way they're designed, to get this kind of slim skeleton look to them. I will point this out at this time, though. While getting these figures posed in these for the shot here, I do kind of have one complaint. And that is that the two gripping hands, the ones that they both have on right now, are not really that great at holding their weapon. The shield, it kind of doesn't really matter. It just kind of stops the shield from rotating and falling off the end. It's not a big deal. But the hand that holds their bladed weapon is not very good. You can see the guy is a little bit more crouched down as I've been talking or as I've set up the shot. It's kind of slid down there in his hand. They don't really hold the weapon all that great. I do want to take a look at them holding some other series weapons, maybe some Savage Crucible or some Mythic Legions, because this is honestly where these guys are going to fit in. I didn't buy these because I'm a Golden Axe collector or a Storm collector. I bought these because I got them at a great price, and I wanted to put them in with my other figures. All right, I grabbed a couple weapons from some another skeleton Mythic Legions I have, and I think a Vampire Phalanx Legion builder. They hold the shields actually pretty good. They hold them about as good as they hold their own. Not perfectly sized for their hands, but their hands are pretty bendy. And as far as the weapons go, they're actually a lot more secure in their hands. I think because of the way the handles are designed, a little bit bigger on the Mythic Legions, it looks like, versus the bladed weapons that came with these figures. So it actually sits pretty good in their hands. I didn't have to use any heat or anything to try to reshape the hands. And then I threw some leather belts on them from those Mythic figures as well. I think they look pretty cool. I got a bunch of those laying around, and I might just spice these guys up a little bit with some Mythic leather. It'll certainly help them blend in with my Mythic figures if that's where they end up sitting, having some Mythic series weapons and accessories hanging off of them. All right, last shot here with the weapon swap. These are both Savage Crucible weapons that I painted up. I think they look really good in hand. They fit in their hands well, about as well as the Mythic Legions one. Certainly better than the ones they came with. And I think they look good with the figures. They kind of fit the style and the look of the figures themselves. So I think they would look at home with either one of these lines, with either one of these weapon lines. All right, I wanted to take a look at them side by side with some Savage Crucible first. We have one of the Lemurian slates on the left and Nin Villanor on the right. I think earlier I mentioned these guys stood a little bit taller when they were fully erect, but they seem to be really right at the exact same height. On camera, he's coming in just a shade shorter than that slate, and that is accurate. A little bit more hunched over, maybe normal pose for a little creeping skeleton walking around. Kind of see him there. He's not as tall, obviously, because he's hunched over, but I think he looks good either way scaled with these figures. I mean, really, side by side, him being just a hair shorter would fit, if you're looking at real life physiology, right? He'd have to be inside that figure, and he looks like he could be inside of that slate. Really, when I saw these, this is exactly why I wanted them. I wanted them to be the skeleton version of these reptilian guys I got. I have the Mythic Legion skeletons, which I love a lot in their own right, and they're kind of human skeletons. These skeletons are not human skeletons. These are my lizard men skeletons. So far, I'm extremely happy just looking at these side by side because they're fitting exactly what I wanted them to be. All right, and here we have them with a couple of Mythic Legion standard size figures. Vorgus Vermilius on the right, and on the left, the Nidian Infantry, which this was the other figure I had in mind when I bought these, having a skeleton that's a snake man for my actual living snake man. I think if this is where you want to put them in your collection, they would be great. They would be awesome skeletons for your Nidian Infantry armies that no doubt you guys that care at all about Mythic Legions are building. Side note, amazing figure. I've been pretty obsessed with it since I got him. That's why I'm using him here too. But I'm really excited to have some skeleton stand-ins for him as well. I've always liked necromancers as far as fantasy stuff goes. So if I have living guys, I need skeletons of those guys so that I can have a necromancer bring them back to life, right? I mean, what fun is just having the living guys? Gotta have some dead bad guys to fight them. And a couple of the Mythic Legion skeletons that I have. I got Waltor the Mad on the right, and one of the new skeleton builders on the left. They scale really well with these. Standing straight up, these Storm skeletons are a hair taller than these figures, but just by a little bit. They're not out of scale in any aspect, I would say. And last up here for the Mythic comparisons, a Brute scale figure and one of the Goblin scale figures. Still think they fit in really nicely with them. All right, and for a 6-inch figure, we have a Star Wars Black Series Grand Admiral Thrawn on the right, and we have a SH Figure Arts Gohan from Dragon Ball superhero. All right, and the last comparison here with a couple other mythical or fantasy characters. On the right, we have the NECA D&D Warduke, and on the left, the Zesray Studios Cassos. Had to pull out the camera a little bit for these guys that are just towering above them. They might still fit good in with the D&D line. You know, these guys stand a little bit taller than most of these 12 scale figures, but I think they sit in pretty good with Warduke over there. And then wherever you want to put in Cassos is good with me. This is one of my current favorite figures. All right, time for some final thoughts here. I'll start with the main reason, or I guess the catalyst of why I pulled the trigger and bought these two. I saw them on a couple retailers for a pretty deep discount. I think Big Bad Toy Store had them for like $39. Amazon had them for $41. I think I saw them discounted at some other places. I think the retail on these guys is normally like $85, $95, somewhere in that ballpark. I could be wrong, but either way, I picked these both up for about $40 for two skeletons. So to me, that math works out pretty good. It's hard to pick up $20 figures that can go in with this scale of figure that look this good and can pose this well. Even though I had a couple small issues with them, really just the hands not holding the weapons very well, I think that's a very, very small downside to them. You could say that they're a little on the fragile side, but again, if you're in this market and you're kind of collecting these type of figures, I don't think these are going to stand out as being especially fragile or easy to break. I think you're going to be used to normally handling these type of figures, you know, maybe using a little bit of heat if you need to, and just taking your time and being careful with the joints. But that being said, them being $20 a piece effectively for two really nice skeletons, for two skeletons that fill a niche that I don't have filled, which is a skeleton to match kind of these snake men or reptilian guys, I couldn't be more happy with them. So at the time of this video going up, if you look around, you'll find retailers selling these for about $40 plus or minus. Depending on who you use, you know, you might not even be paying shipping on top of that. So all in all, I say is a great value, good time to pick them up. If I was really into army building, I might consider picking up a couple more packs. But I'm not. I have enough issues with room on my shelves just buying one of each figure so far, you know. So I got to keep the army building to a minimum. Although it's always there pulling at my heartstrings. You never know, I might end up with another pack or two of these guys. These are super fun to pose. They look really good. They fill a niche I didn't have filled before. They'll fit in with Mythic. They'll fit in with Savage Crucible. They'll fit in with the NECA D&D, and I'm sure plenty of other fantasy type lines. To me, they're kind of a no-brainer. I'm really glad I picked them up. I'm really glad I found them at the price I found them at. I don't know that I'd be quite as blown away if I paid $90 for them, but paying $40, I'm real happy with these guys. All right, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time.